Hello and welcome to another Let's Interview. And today, my guest, and the first one on camera, is Jordan Owens. Wins.
Jordan Owen.
Owen, not Owens, Owen. Wow,
Yeah,
started the interview and I already screw up.
that's okay. I do have a policy that if you call me Owens again, I will come over to your house and nail your dog's head to the coffee table. But barring that, we should be fine. Yeah, I actually used to get like I remember in specifically in second grade, I couldn't get it across to my teachers that there was no S on the end of Owens, and they used to mark points off of my papers for not spelling it correctly.
Wait. You can get points marked off for misspelling your own name?
Right, even though I was spelling it correctly. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
The the education system is screwed up.
Oh,
Alright.
that's nothing. And when I was in middle school, I was living in bumfuck Hayseed, Mississippi, and they pretty much assumed that the only kids that got called to the office were going to be black. So like they would always try to ethnicize my name. Would Jordanowen please come to the front office? So that was kind of wild. Anyway, what do you got for me?
There's been a couple of questions. Is it true that you have a picture of Gail Dunt in a bikini hiding around your house?
It was. We originally we tried to display it, and what happened was we found this nice rocky outcropping where we displayed it, and there were this man and woman, two archaeological scholars that tried to stop us from displaying it, and we tied them to a post with a big eyeball on the top, way off in the back, and the rest of us kind of gathered around, and we unveiled the picture. And as soon as we did, we made it a point to have various fictional Nazi characters present, and as soon as we did, all of the Nazi characters melted in what can only be called the special effects extravaganza of 1981. So that
All right.
after that point, the picture is now being guarded by top men.
What, man?
Top men.
Fair
We
enough.
gave it to, we gave it to some bottom men, but it came back filthy. So.
All right. In all seriousness, a lot of people would like to know what got you to start YouTube. What made you want to start, making videos?
Uh, it came. I kind of fell into it, not really wanting to do like I got obviously I was very much an early adopter, and I got into YouTube when there was like 5 videos on it, and one of them was a John Zorn video, so I got into it, and I set up an account I think in like '06, and then in '07 I kind of just fell into making videos just because at the time there was I was the religious debates on YouTube were really heating up, and
Oh yeah.
this was in the days of people actually saying things like, "Have you ever heard of Thunderfoot?" So this was very very early on in all of that, and and then they would say, "Have you ever heard of the Amazing Atheist?" And I would say, "Yes," and I wish I hadn't.
You don't like the Amazing Atheist that much?
No. That's a whole other story. But
Fair enough.
we're on camera right now, so I won't start talking about that. But
Oh.
somebody just put in an appearance. But I got into it very much in the early days. Not I was paying attention to a lot of the religious debate going on because I was kind of at that point I was kind of going through my own process, my own epiphany of coming to terms with being an atheist and that sort of thing, and I didn't want to, it was very difficult for me to let go of it, especially because I've actually had a really good experience. My parents never took me to the insane churches. They always took me to very polite, decent, intelligent
Yeah, same here.
churches. Yeah, yeah. And so I was already kind of the odd man out in the Christian community because in a heavily Baptist area, we had been Episcopalian, which for Southern Baptists, Episcopalianism is like this far away from Wicca. So
Oh.
it's yeah, I mean they so that's I mean it's pretty much you're pretty much the odd man out anyway. I remember I remember we had we actually my Christian youth group actually had a meeting about what responses we would use if someone from a certain there's a big time Baptist church nearby. What if we encountered someone from that church at school or around town or something who confronted us and told us we were going to hell? What should our response be? So
And
what
what were
what should
some of the responses you came up with?
I can't even. I mean, my response would have just been, "Well, fuck you," but or I'll see you there,
Fuck
But
you, Hail Mary.
yeah, yeah. But then but then you come home and that person you get home and that person's dousing your house with lighter fluid, so you have to be careful. Um, but the uh, but yeah, I I can't even remember some of the responses we came up with. I do remember this was great. I do remember there was we were talking about different people around town who had given us shit, and there was this one kid who was who had been giving me shit for being Episcopalian, and I mentioned that in the course of our youth group meeting there, and there were these two like brothers that were there, that kind of jock type guys, and one of them said, "Oh, he's a dead man." Get to school the next week, and the guy had a broken finger, and he was like telling me, I'm gunning for you, like pointing at me. It was so fucking funny because this guy was such a fucking dipshit. Like I remember he was doing it as me and this other guy were walking out of the men's restroom, and he was standing at a stall. He saw me and pointed at me and said, I'm gonna fucking, you're fucking dead. I'm gonna fuck. And the other guy thought he was talking to him and goes back in there angry. Said, "What'd you say to me?" And I just let the door close and walked off. And like, this guy's such a fucking dipshit.
That's like
Just
something.
gets his,
That sounds like something off of a sitcom.
right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, this is the guy. This is the guy that if he had ever actually thrown a punch at me, I would have like seen it coming a mile away and dodged it, and he would have gone falling into a stack of something. And and the funny thing, the wild thing though, was first, he got expelled for having drugs,
Oh,
and then that mortal sin, and then for I think he had weed, or it was weed or LSD, one of the two, and he got expelled for that. And then the word around the campfire, apparently, I mean, we know he got arrested. That much is for certain. But the word around the campfire was that he got arrested for making an 8-year-old girl suck his dick for a quarter. Yeah. And so the thing is, for whatever reason, he gets arrested, and it was some kind of crime where he would have to go to jail. And so they can't send him to jail because he's underage, so they put him in the Army. They can't put him into basic training because he's underage, so they put him behind a desk at the recruitment office. So he gets this nice desk job in a goddamn air-conditioned building, and all of my friends are flipping burgers, so that it just
the government. It makes no
that's your,
sense, even
it's
in the
your
government.
tax dollars at work.
Oh yeah, you hear about John
Anyway,
McCain playing poker during the whole Syria meeting?
mm-mm.
Yeah, John McCain was caught playing on his iPad during this 3-hour meeting of whether the U.S. is going to get involved in Syria.
Great.
I
Yeah,
I
God.
wish I was making that up. That, in my opinion, you have to be stupid to be in the government.
Yeah,
Two
yeah.
reasons. One, well, obviously, gut people in the government are pretty much idiots and usually just think about their backers, not the people. And two,
Right.
even if you want to do good, it's still stupid because if you do good, people will insist you're consistent, and obviously humans can't always be consistent.
Yeah.
And if you do bad, your reputation is down the toilet no matter what. Like, look
Hmm.
at Richard Nixon. He probably did a couple of good things, but even if you said something good about him, everybody's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
but what about Watergate?" And then remember
Right,
that.
right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I
Honestly,
mean, well, it's like it's like the everything with Reagan. I mean, Reagan is the big conservative right wing jerk off fantasy for everybody.
yep.
Yeah, and it's like it's like anything good Reagan could have done was outshined by the Iran-Contra scandal was outshined by, his stance on abortion and all of these things. And that was one of the big things that led me to becoming a libertarian, was because it was like, when you vote, okay, you can vote left or right, and if you vote left, then you get great stuff as far as social progress, but you have to hold your nose on the economic issues. And if you vote right, you get great economic stuff. Not really anymore, but you would get great economic stuff, and you have to hold your nose on the social issues.
Let's face
So,
it. You're, as
right.
South Park put it, you are voting between a douche and a turd.
Amen,
I
sir.
South Park pretty much said that best.
Yeah,
So,
perfectly.
I guess what a lot of people, when I'm sure a lot of your viewers, they see you mostly focusing on feminism and social and I'm trying to think, like sexual liberation. What
Yeah.
made you go from like the whole atheism to the whole socialist?
Well, the original seed of the idea was planted in about, I want to say 2007 or 2008, somewhere in there. Uh, I had been doing, I'd gotten, like I said, I got into doing videos just because I was kind of wanted to be a part of the discussion. I wasn't looking to be like a YouTube personality or anything like that. I didn't want to be one of these.
You
This
just
was really
wanted to get into the discussion,
get
share
into
your
it.
opinion,
Yeah,
and help people decide.
right, right. Get my ideas, my voice out there, and occasionally say demeaning things about Venom Fang X, and that kind of caught on, and people, I guess, enjoyed my caustic witticisms. I started doing that more and more. And so I was listening to, I'd always had very strong feelings about sexual freedom and sexual liberation, especially living in very conservative areas in the South, where there's this prevailing attitude of, this very, you get there and every girl is hit over the head from the day they're born with abstinence only, and wait until marriage and blah blah, and like 0.5% of them ever actually accomplish
I
that.
know.
But right, but it's this very conservative attitude, this kind of being perplexed at the idea that if if a man puts his pee-pee in another man's butthole somehow, God cries. It would be kind of like, to me, I have to look at that from God's perspective. Like, if I had an ant farm and I walked by and looked at it and some of the ants were fucking in the butt, I just go,
That would actually make
oh,
me laugh if I saw that. I'd be
yeah,
like,
okay,
maybe I should change the food because it's doing something. I'd be a little concerned,
yeah,
but I'd be
yeah.
like, okay.
Maybe you just lean down into the little food trough and go, abomination, but yeah, I mean, I can never fathom a God who said, I can never imagine an all-powerful, all-knowing deity that created the vast reaches of the cosmos and is furious if you don't cut the tip of your penis off. I mean, it's just absolutely
I
absurd to
know.
me.
I think
And
Family Guy also put it best out as well. Why is it that it's okay for a man and a woman who don't even like each other to be married,
what
but two guys who absolutely love each other can? I
can, yeah.
It's funny. A lot of people
I
criticize
want to
Family Guy, but they have good points.
I want to do. I don't want to say too much here because I want to save it for the video. But I have an idea for a video about how gay marriage. People say gay marriage will change straight marriage. I have a video I want to do about how gay marriage could change straight marriage in a good way.
Really?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
actually sounds very enlightening, and
Yes.
I can't wait to see. That's actually
I'll,
why when I found you, it was the whole Anita Sarkeesian debate, and I found that you had a lot of good points. You are actually very entertaining to listen to, and in the vein
yeah,
of like The Amazing Atheist. And I find it to be more entertainment wise than intellectual. I mean,
him. Yeah, yeah.
he's he lets you think, but you really just watch him to see how
Yeah.
insane he gets.
You mainly watch him to see him talk, where he shakes his jowls.
And
And
just go insane. Personally, I think he's
yeah.
secretly a woman. I mean, look at his tits. I actually said that in
Well,
his latest video, and some people
yeah.
found that amusing.
To fully answer, though, how I got into the sexual thing, there was a user, JesusFreak777, who I haven't followed him in years, I haven't watched him in years, so I don't know. A while ago he put up a video implying that he would be willing to kill children if God told him to, and
Okay.
yeah, it's another facepalm moment. And which is a shame because watching him, I always thought, I don't agree with his ideas, but he's the kind of Ned Flanders kind of guy that I'd feel comfortable having,
Yeah, I like.
having kids around, like did like a decent guy. But when he said that would creep me out. But anyway, so he was arguing in an internet debate with another guy. I cannot think of the other user's name. I think it was like Blunty something or other. I can't remember, but they were arguing about that teenage girls, maybe 15, 16, whatever, were getting on YouTube, putting up videos on YouTube and other sites of themselves scantily clad, dancing provocatively, you know. And there was, as I was listening to this debate, there was this implied understanding between both of them that this was wrong. Are you twirling a lightsaber? Nice.
Sonic
Anyway,
screwdriver. I have autism and ADHD, so I kind of gotta move
hey,
them.
it's all good, man.
Yeah,
But
I
but yeah,
see what you're going at. Ugh,
yeah.
it's
There
made of
was this
soup.
implied right. There was this implied understanding between the two of them that what this girl was doing was wrong, and Jesus Freak was taking the right wing perspective of we have lost. She's lost her Christian morality. She doesn't have God in her life. Amoral, atheistic, secular worldview caused her to do this. Blah blah blah. Uh, the other guy is saying, well, no, what happened was she's been so oppressed by people like you that she doesn't have a concept of how to express herself in a healthy way. She doesn't, what she's, so she's the only way she knows how to explore sexuality is in a degrading manner like this because she's so oppressed. And I thought, this is two people taking the same perspective or the same position for different reasons. I mean, we're
Yeah.
essentially, and that's one of the themes that comes up in Eros Empire is that we're talking about the reason the right and the left don't really have a debate about pornography is because they're ultimately on the same
They're
side.
basically just saying pornography is bad, sex is bad, and giving a different reason as to
Right, right,
why. I mean, there's no
and
one really taking. They're not really allowing anyone to take the side of pornography, as
right,
with
right.
like how
Yeah.
Gail Dines said that. Oh, the pornography industry is going to be biased with it. Well, of course they're going to be biased. They're part of the porn industry, just like you're going to be biased against it.
Right,
Be
right.
honest. And of
It's like
course, you got in a lot more famous thanks to your sort of rivalry, as I like to think of, with Gail Dines. You're the antithesis to the point where you even got mentioned in her Wikipedia entry as writer Jordan Owen.
yep, and well, I'm glad she appreciates all the hard work I do because I do have a lot of whacking off I have to do, and being able to take, as she pointed out, being able to take time out of that my busy schedule of
your
you
your
know
many dates with Miss Rosie.
yes, 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 I'm basically I'm respackling my kitchen floor with cum, and so that for that that reason, I mean, yeah, I have to take a lot of time out of my schedule to do that. Actually, I mainly have to take time out of my schedule of practicing guitar, which is like whacking off. But
Well,
uh,
yeah, it does look like it. Boom, boom, boom.
uh, yeah, you better believe it. But yeah, so that uh, yeah. I mean, my rivalry, as it were, with Gail Dines. What I do is, I try to see who's trending, who are the big people right now. And when I went into commenting on anti-porn, the three big names were Gail Dines, Patrick Truman, and Shelley Lubin.
Hey.
And the reason people have asked me why I focus on, the in Eros Empire, like the ultimate villain is the right-wing religious nut, and the academic feminist is still a villain, but more of a stooge. And why did I portray it that way, as opposed to why do I focus on the academic in quotes side of it more in reality? And the answer is that ultimately the conservative right wing authoritarians, they are the ultimate threat because they have the clout. What they have is clout, but what they don't have is credibility as far as their arguments go, because their argument, when you boil down to it, is we can't whack off because God will cry. And so that's not, they can't ban pornography on the basis of their religious beliefs. Hence the unholy union of the left and the right over this issue, where they start bringing in the academic feminists to try to, feminists with whom they would be mortal enemies if pornography didn't exist.
Basically, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right. They start bringing in, and then they accuse us of being pragmatic and calculating. But they bring in the feminist academics who do not have any actual academic basis, but what they do have is the semblance of academic quality. They can come in and give the right-wing authoritarians the credibility or the semblance of credibility that they need. And that's why when you can run around with all of these horrific sounding statistics, this idea that 1 in 3, was it only 3% of rapists will ever spend a day in jail? Well, first of all, that in and of itself is over dramatized and not true, because if the guy is if the guy is arrested and brought down to the station house, then he will spend at least 1 day in jail. But also statements like that come from the already flawed numbers that Mary Koss came up with. That's where we get the 1 in 4 statistic. As I'm sure everybody knows, Mary Koss's the Koss study was heavily inflated by deciding for the women that they were victims of sexual assault. And when it was brought to Koss's attention later on that a lot of the women she had counted as being victims of sexual assault had gone on to maintain ongoing relationships with their boyfriends or the men who supposedly attacked them, in some cases having them as their boyfriends or their husbands and that sort of thing, she said her response was not, oh, well, I misunderstood what they were, or I misappropriated what they were saying. Her response, because careers were being built around this, was, oh, well, obviously they've been brainwashed by patriarchy. I mean, paraphrase. Yeah, and
here's a pretty good drinking game. Go into any feminist video, get some beer, and take a shot every time they say the word patriarchy. Most likely you'll be dead by the end of the video.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll die of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, and patriarchy at this point is basically Illuminati, and it's what it's like. Yeah.
Illuminati mixed with the boogeyman.
Right. Well, there's a really strong comparison between evangelical Christianity and feminism. They both function off the same thought process. They both generate their own data in complete defiance of actual academia, and the thought process was very much the same. And during the 1980s, there was something called the Satanic Panic, which was where there were these widespread beliefs. It started with a book. I believe the book was called Michelle Remembers. I think it was Michelle Remembers. It was Somebody Remembers. It was a woman's name, and it was supposed to be this book about that she had been inducted into the Church of Satan as a child, and this, and this. And Anton LaVey actually threatened to sue for slander or sue for libel, and of course it was immediately discredited because the she says in the book that she was inducted about 10 years before the Church of Satan actually existed.
Well, that's kind of
And and I mean, and people, of course, people would want to say, oh, well, they were just underground before then. Like, no, Anton LaVey was, you can follow the timeline. There was none of that going on. But anyway, so it was a widely discredited book, but it became very popular in the 1980s to say that there were satanic cult groups that were, grabbing up children from daycare centers and kidnapping women and raping them to making them pregnant to use as breeders so they'd have children for their human sacrifices and all this stuff. And and the and all of these wild, outrageous claims. And this was very popular throughout the 80s, and it gave talk show hosts a whole lot a whole lot of revenue. And then one of the big things, of course, was that heavy metal musicians are making blood sacrifices to Satan, worshiping Satan, having satanic orgies, having all this stuff. This is the golden age of Ozzy biting heads off of bats, and Iron Maiden puts out Number of the Beast and all that.
and how they look
Yeah,
all
yeah,
pyromaniac, despite
yes,
the
yeah,
fact that the lead singer is actually a Christian.
yeah. Well, yeah, of
Every
Kiss. Oh, you mean Paul Stanley? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and it's yeah that Kiss means Knights in Satan's Service, and that AC/DC means Antichrist, Devil Cult,
I
and
know,
all.
pretty
Yeah,
much. Uh, it's there's something that they're always going to complain about. If
yeah, and it's the but the thing is, what happened was they were when all of this controversy was going on about metal bands are doing all of these satanic rituals and worshiping Satan and all of this, and eventually the media looks into it enough to realize, you have things like your Paradise Lost documentaries come out, and you have more in-depth interviews with metal musicians, and it starts to come out. You start to finally realize that no, these guys are not worshiping the devil. They're not doing any of this supposed stuff that's supposedly happening. These are just wild, unfounded accusations. And the response from the religious community, of course, is, oh well, we don't mean that they are actually conducting these rituals, even though you just said they were. We don't mean they're actually conducting rituals, but they're not.
well, that was weird. We had sort of like having a little trouble over Skype, doing a little slowdown. Okay, I think we're good.
All right.
Sometimes Skype has a weird connection thing.
Yeah. But what happened was they said, they went from saying that these rituals were actually happening to saying, oh no, it's their lifestyle. Their lifestyle serves Satan, and they're living a hedonistic, secular lifestyle that blah blah blah. The same thing is true with the patriarchy. The idea first it was there is a patriarchy, that we live in a patriarchy that is consciously and intentionally constructed to oppress women. Why? Nobody can really explain
Maybe
it.
in the 50s it would make sense.
Yeah, right. I mean, I wouldn't say that we lived in a society that actively sought to oppress women. I would say we lived in a society that did not give women proper consideration, which is very different. But yeah, this idea that we live in a society that actively seeks to oppress women, and as more and more, obviously it comes out that no, there's not some kind of Illuminati conspiracy theory to oppress women, and more women are becoming more successful. And so the way they compensate for that is the same way that the evangelicals and the religious right compensated for the fact that there aren't actual satanic rituals going on. It becomes, oh, well, people are living a lifestyle that encourages and reinforces the patriarchy. And when women become successful in business, oh, well, patriarchy, capitalism is patriarchal. Why? No one really knows. But okay, capitalism is patriarchy. And so any woman that's successful in capitalism is only reinforcing the patriarchy that already exists. And Yeah, and so that's what's amazing is my idea. Like I would say, if a young woman came to me faced with the decision to either have the career she wanted or to join or to get married and become a housewife out of a sense of duty to society, I would say, girl, you go get that career you want. You chase that career. Fuck what society thinks. I strongly feel like if Gail Dines was faced with that that dichotomy, she would say no. Well, actually, I know that this is what she would say because I've dealt with who have had the Gail Dines experience and related it to me. But anyway, she would say, well, no, there's this third option: become a radical feminist, become a feminist activist, and you can tear down the patriarchy. You won't be a housewife, and you won't be an evil capitalist. Basically, you'll just be a glorified pain in the ass. But you'll be, you can be this new thing that this third option. And
Patriarchy, tear down this wall.
yeah, exactly. And it's like I the it's like oh, I'm sorry, I get flummoxed. But we were with that idea that there's that capitalism and being successful capitalistically is reinforcing the patriarchy. That's absolute bollocks, and it comes down to, I mean, what I was talking about with Mundane Matt yesterday is this this idea that we don't, what Gail Dines wants, freedom means two different things to the masters and the slaves, and this bears repeating. What Gail Dines, Anita Sarkeesian, all of these people want, they don't want to elevate their followers up to the level of, from slaves up to the level of the masters. They don't want that. They hate the masters. So rather than rather than achieve equality by building women up, they want to achieve equality by tearing men down.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That gets us nowhere. It's better if we're
Right.
all equal and we all have the same privileges, same rights, right? And we all get
Yeah.
along. I mean, what's wrong with that idea?
Right. Right. And what Gail Dines and Anita Sarkeesian and all of those people don't get is, as I pointed out, I don't want revolution. I don't want civil war. But it I believe it was Mahatma Gandhi said, we are men of tolerance, but there is only so much a man can tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
And when your morality says bring everybody down to the level of the slaves, all that means is that when the revolution comes, everybody is coming after you. And so that's, Dumbledore, Albus Dumbledore said it right. Do you have any idea, Harry, how much tyrants fear the people they oppress? And that's,
It makes sense. I mean, you piss off enough of your slaves, they will
yeah,
revolt. I mean, just look at the many French monarchies that got executed.
yes. Yeah, exactly. And now we have Bastille Day by Rush to blast over the PAs and stereos all over the world as we take back our freedoms. But anyway, yeah, I mean, so that is the morality of people like Gail Dines. Gail Dines' ultimate. You notice, it's funny if you notice, Gail, if Gail is slighted by if she is slighted by a man, she writes it off as patriarchy, this blah 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 blah, and then write it off. She barely acknowledges it, if at all. You might get an article or two, but when she is slighted by a woman, like when she was put out by Melissa Harris Perry in favor of a pornographer, she actually went on a lecture circuit tour, lecturing, and that's what I covered in my Gail Dines versus Individualism
Yeah, and a
series.
very good video.
Yeah, thank you. And she devoted an entire lecture series to how butthurt she was by being bumped for Tristan Taormino on the Melissa Harris Perry show.
Tumblr,
And
the lecture. Tumblr
yeah,
post, the
exactly,
lecture.
exactly. Yeah, it was. and that really shows that Gail Dine's enemy is not men. Gail Dines is not trying to oppress men. She's not trying to control men. She wants to oppress and control women. And that's what I was saying to Mundane Matt yesterday, is that when women actually do have freedom, complete and total freedom and complete and total individual autonomy, it will be people like Gail Dines and Anita Sarkeesian and all of those. They will be the ones that are defeated, not the men. You know, the men, the supposed problem with men is presented as an abstract cultural problem that has no real concretes associated with it. Whereas what Gail Dines does, what Anita Sarkeesian does, what these people do, and you could expand upon Susan Brown Miller and Diane and Andrea, the late Andrea Dworkin, and all of these things. But these people, those are the ones that feed on women and feed on having women be dependent on them, controlling them. There was a time before, if you don't delve, there's that statement, feminism is the radical notion that women are people. And if you don't delve into the vernacular, the feminist vernacular very much, on the surface it can sound very appealing. This idea of okay, we want equal rights for we want equality for women, we want all this, we want that, and they attach themselves to valid surface issues like abortion and birth control and all that. Women do have the right. You have the right to individual bodily autonomy. So you have the right to decide whether or not you are pregnant. You have the right to decide whether or not you are medically capable, if you want to medically mediate your ability to have children. All of these things, you have the right as an individual. What they don't stop to fully clarify, but what becomes apparent if you look at the full scope of the thing with objectivity, is that what they want is not individual rights for women. They want, instead of men calling the shots for women, they want women calling the shots for women.
AKA matriarchy.
Right. Exactly, matriarchy. And patriarchy are both just as useless to a free society, because it's not because of the gender, it's because the people in charge see themselves as the parents of society, and that's that is the problem. It's helicopter parenting on a global political scale. And
yep, I can agree to that one. So
yeah.
I think we've gotten to this conversation a bit much. So moving on, you're also, not only
Yes.
are you a successful ranter on YouTube, but you're also a pretty good writer. You wrote
Thank
the
you.
book Eros Empire. I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but what inspired you to actually make a book and get into the publishing world?
Well, I have been, as far as the overall concept of writing books and that sort of thing, I have been deeply involved in literature and two musical fields, which were music and literature, music and writing. My mom was a writer. My dad was a musician. So I mean, this is what I was surrounded by in the house and everything. And so I'm really showing my age here, but I can remember having one of those record players that was the size of this couch. And we had, and it was, we had a great stack of, Henry Mancini, the Pink Panther, which is still one of my favorite jazz recordings. The Pink Panther, lots of Beatles, so Rubber Soul, Magical Mystery Tour, all of that. So I grew up on that stuff, and then, and like, not to digress too much, but in fourth grade I was learning to play the trombone, But my dad, in an effort to get me excited about playing the trombone, got me Chicago's Greatest Hits, and the first thing you hear on that is 250624, which opens with, and this great this great riff is like Smoke on the Water or something. And so the minute I heard that coming over the speakers, I was like, That's what I'm going to do. I want to be a guitar player.
Yeah, that
But the
just pretty
writing,
much hit you like a ton of bricks and told you,
yes,
do me.
yeah, yeah. It was just, I mean, it just feel it. You know, you just feel it. And a few years later, I got a guitar, and the rest is history. As far as writing goes, though, my mom had always done, you know, and I had always my mom had been a freelance writer, editor, publicist, and all that. And she set up her business where she could work from home, you know, so she could be at home and raise me. And that was where I got, you know, I get that kind of that worldview that says you don't have to choose either or. You can do the whole thing if you really set your mind to it. And so she was always always at home to raise me. My dad was professionally a computer programmer, so he was at the office. And she was there to raise me, and I was constantly, surrounded by my mom working and writing. And what's interesting is this desk. My room's a mess, but this desk right here is the desk that my mom worked on, and I kind of just, you know, when I moved out on my own, I inherited, various furniture, and and so, you know, that working at that desk is like there's a real personal quality to
I can
it.
understand.
Yeah, and so I was always surrounded by that, and I was always the sort of kid that I was the sort of kid that was always working on some kind of abstract project of some sort. You know, I remember, I remember having a globe that lit up from the inside and with like star patterns on it. You know, so you see where, you know, star patterns over the Earth and everything. And I remember like setting up this like science type station around it where I took all of my science related books and positioned them in this nice kind of presentation, you know, and it was like a museum piece or something. And my mom has pictures of all of that somewhere. And I was always doing stuff like that. That was what I always, you know, what I got into. And I did a fair amount of dart guns with other
Yeah, those are
boys and
always fun.
everything. You know, yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, the traditionally
Masculine.
masculine
Hey,
things.
when I was a
But
little
I was
kid, my little sister had this like bendable leg Barbie doll. I wrapped it up in like black garb, and it was Ninja Barbie fighting my like Megazord and so on. That was
yeah, yeah, yeah,
fun.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, right. And I mean, it was for me. It was never. I was never. My parents started out. My parents started out Republican, but in a very probably a more libertarian sense. But they voted Republican, and then Bush won, said "Read my lips, no new
And
taxes," and
what did
fuck.
he do?
Yeah, race. And so at that point, they just, you know, and getting tired of the Christian right and everything, they did a hard left turn, and but yeah, that's my left. So,
Yeah, I did my left.
the
It's all
left.
good.
This is a good metaphor. The left and the right are the same depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor.
But anyway, so they went very Democrat at that point, and I was not raised in a household that had I was not raised in a household that emphasized gender roles very strongly one way or the other, and there was not by the same token, there was not some effort to guide me away from traditionally masculine pursuits. So I had a full range of interests. I had a full range of things I was interested in. I loved playing. I hated sports. I absolutely hated
Me
sports.
too.
Yeah, I enjoyed martial arts. I enjoyed karate. I enjoyed all of that. Mainly because that was the one area where I could beat the shit out of my opponent with impunity, and I mean, it was totally safe, and I had all the like foam
Yeah,
padding.
yeah. Whenever you spar, you have to have like all
Yeah,
the protective matting to make sure no one gets seriously hurt.
right. And there was like, yeah, there'd be an adult supervisor there making sure. But even so, it's like you really get to lay
You're
into it there.
allowed to actually punch their lights out.
Yeah, yeah, and right, and so it's a little more fun. I had all those aggressive type boyhood pursuits, but then I was always drawing, I was always reading, I was always and musically, my parents exposed me to tons of music. We went and saw Phantom of the Opera, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. The Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat shirt that I wear in my videos, sometimes just if I happen to put it on, is that's the shirt I got at that show when I was like 11, and
Damn.
how it still fits, I have no idea.
The magic of music.
There you go, man. And plus, by the time I was 11, I was almost the size that I am now. I was almost at 6'2", so.
Damn.
Yeah, I know, right? But and then, and Cats. I loved Cats. I don't care if anyone says.
Not me.
I,
But then again,
okay,
it's the only time when I can see a bunch of pussy on stage.
well, I tell you, some of those dancers in the spandex.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's just not my show, but I can admit that it's still a well-produced show.
Well, I'll tell you, this is amazing. This is how I got into things. I liked Kiss originally as a kid. I'm not that big of a Kiss fan, but I liked Kiss as a kid because it looked like Cats, the musical. I'm almost the cat, and so that was very, I was coming back around. I was always in a very creative household, and my parents were never the sort of parents that said, never look at that. You can never look at this. You should never think of it. Never look at this. All this. If they didn't want me to be involved in something, it was, you're not ready for this yet. We don't want you watching. Yeah, this movie is too violent right now. When you get older, you can watch it. It's that kind of thing. And so I never really felt like I was being deprived in any way because of that. And so it was natural for me to want to write. I had always wanted to write stories, and early on, in fourth grade, I started writing my first novel. I had been reading a lot of Brian Jacques, which was Redwall and Secret of Nim and that sort of thing. A lot of talking animal stuff. I'm sorry?
I love The Secret of Nim. Great Don Bluth movie.
Don Bluth. The movie's amazing. The book is amazing, too.
Both are good. The movie just improves upon it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the movie is really amazing, and I actually want to do a comparative analysis because Don Bluth and Ayn Rand philosophically have a lot in common.
Really? I would love to see
really, especially... I'm sorry?
I would love to actually see that comparison because I know you respect Ayn Rand in the works.
Yeah, right. And there's a huge parallel between Secret of Nim and Atlas Shrugged, between Titan After Earth and Atlas Shrugged. There's a lot of stuff there, and you think about it. Not to give everything away, but you think about it. Titan After Earth, which, have you seen that one?
I really do need to see it.
Okay, it is really good. It didn't do very well, but it's really good. But if you think about it, the literal, what is the metaphorical idea in Atlas Shrugged? John Galt is going to stop the motor of the world. That's what he's, that's the metaphorical idea. He's going to stop the motor of the world. In Titan After Earth, the main character is literally now fighting the collective to literally restart the actual motor of the world. So, there's this huge parallel. Anyway, so I had been, as a kid, I'd been into a lot of that. I hated problem novels. The problem novels where it's like, Chip Buckweiser is the star forward on the junior varsity.
Oh, but he has to get an A+ on his next test or he can't play in the next game.
And his mom's dying of cancer. Can Chip and his good dog Bucky pull it together in time for the big game?
Well, obviously.
Yeah, and it's just such fucking bullshit. And I'll tell you another one. We've all seen the Disney movie of The Fox and the Hound. The book of The Fox and the Hound is the most depressing shit you can possibly imagine. Yeah. It literally carries... Yeah, have you read it? You know what I'm talking about?
I have when I was a little kid because I thought it was going to be the same as the movie, and Also, to anyone who ever sees a commercial for Watership Down, if you watch The Old Hobbit, don't watch that movie. It will give you nightmares.
I will tell you this. I practice different songs. Like if I get a song stuck in my head, I learn it. I was actually, when I told you I needed 5 minutes, It's because I was practicing Bright Eyes, and I had to stop and pull myself together. Like that song has been stuck in my head, and not to get weepy emotional,
No.
but that's very much been in my head ever since Dusty died.
Oh yeah, your cat. I
Yeah,
am
and
sorry for your loss.
thank you, thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's like, was it bright eyes? How do you turn and fail? How does the light that burns so brightly suddenly burn so pale? My guitar's a little out of tune, but you get the
Hey,
idea.
sounds better than what I could ever do with a guitar.
Yeah, and so that happened to be the song I was working on. But yeah, Watership Down, and even more so, there's another one called that by the same author called The Plague
Yes, I
Dogs.
saw that one too, and God,
Holy Jesus Christ, we are talking about. I mean, I saw that, I saw Watership Down, and I saw well, Watership Down I already knew about. I watched it recently, and I watched Play Dogs recently, and I watched Where the Wind Blows recently, and I thought, British people do comedy perfectly. Britain does comedy perfectly.
yeah, Monty Python,
They
quintessential.
yeah, they do animation horribly. I mean, it's like everything's the most depressing shit you can imagine. And
Yeah, I know, but
the
they don't sugarcoat that the world can be such a horrible and cruel place. Pretty much
yeah,
that's sort of the difference between U.S. and British programming. The U.S. it's all there's a problem, you can solve it, everything will be good in the end. The British people
yeah,
say there's a problem, you could solve it, but it's not going to end up happy.
right. Well, that goes back more to classical tragedy, where it's like, how do we accomplish? We accomplish the greater goal. Even if what is the greatest possible goal we can accomplish, and is it worth giving up the immediate satisfaction to accomplish that greater goal? That goes back to Oedipus, to Creon,
There,
Antigone, and
I
all of
mean,
that.
yeah, which is
So
pretty much themes and
yeah,
allegories that are starting to become lost upon
yeah,
the modern age.
yeah, right. Where you can, I mean, we're in the age of Michael Bay, where all problems can be solved by exploding, and
Which is good at some points, but if you do it all the
yeah,
time, then it's just less than the awesome.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, and it's kind of like the worst book I ever read was Lives of the Monster Dogs by Kirsten Backus. And throughout that book, don't read it. I'm not spoiling anything because it's a piece of shit, and you'll be able to see it coming a mile away, but the ending coming a mile away. But it's like there is a uh, the characters that revolves around are stockpiling gunpowder, and we never entirely find out why. But then, like the castle then explodes at the end. It's like, oh, it's just you're just having them stockpile gunpowder so you could blow the goddamn house up. But but anyway, it's like it's this. Getting back to the original point, I love talking animal stories. I love animals. I love talking animals. I love the idea that, like Art Spielman did with Mouse, where which is very, very profound, obviously, but the idea that, you can use the characteristics of animals to represent different social groups, different personality
It's
types, and
as
everything.
Aesop used animals in his fables because they were easier to relate to. It's easier to
Right.
relate to a story that's based around like talking animals because you can already tell what traits they're usually going to be implied to. And it's easier to understand and relate to them, like cutting of a
Yeah.
fox, the quickness of her hair, the wisdom
Hmm.
of the old tortoise. It's
Exactly.
easy to understand them. Like, for
Yeah,
example, in
yeah.
Secret of Nim, it's easy to emphasize with some of the mice and their problems because they're small. They're living in the world of man, and if they screw
Hmm.
up, the huge humans are going to capture them straight to
Hmm.
get them. So you already sort of empathize with their problems.
Right, right. And that's, yeah, I mean, we have a built-in sense of affection for animals as it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why Watership Down is so fucking hard to watch,
Yeah, because
And
this is nature and reality. Oh yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that scene with the pit with the snares. Ugh.
yeah. There's actually a really cool YouTube called Animation. I forget the series is called Animation Horrors. I can't think of the user, but does Animation Horrors where he comments on like the most disturbing shit from the movies that we grew up with. So like the gassing scene in Watership Down, the shotgun scene where the guy literally shoots himself point blank in the face
because
with a
he
double
was a
barrel
plague
shotgun
dog
in the
that he was
plague
just
dogs. Yeah.
trying to be nice to, and that was an accident.
Right, right. And I mean, all of this, and so yeah, he goes. It's a great series, and he comments. There's one really good one, by the way, that he comments on called Felidae. It's a German movie. It's brilliant. It's about it's a talking animal movie about cats. About a cat that's trying to solve a murder mystery in the classic film noir
Isn't that the
style.
one with
Yeah,
the cat organ? I'm trying to think. There's like a story. Oh wait,
I
no, no,
haven't
wait.
finished
That was the
watching
one with like
it.
the cats who fight each other, and you
Yeah,
see the graphic guts. I saw another one that was
yeah,
like about a musical where these cats were being kidnapped by a man who was putting them into this organ where a spike would come down the tail, so the cat would
yeah.
cry out each note, and that was real. That's a
I think
real
that's what
device.
I think that's what Ann Coulter masturbates to. But
I would not be surprised.
yeah, but anyway, bringing that back around, I loved all of that stuff. And growing up, I was into that. My dad, my parents always read stories to me, and my dad, of course, on his nights would read stories he was interested in. So that was where we read Frank Herbert's Dune. We read all of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh,
Galaxy
those were a good
stories.
series.
Yeah, and one, if I can put my hand on it, I don't see it. I have most of my autographed books over here, but the book Ark Liberty is really fantastic. Very lesser-known science fiction novel by a gentleman named Brad Strickland. He wrote it as Will Bradley, and he was a huge influence on me because my mom was working in Roswell, Georgia at the time for a children's bookstore called Hobbit Hall. And this was before the resurgence of Tolkien with the movies and everything. So Hobbit Hall was great. It was this they'd taken this cottage and converted it into into a bookstore. And so you would go in and the foyer, would be where the cash register was and everything, and the kind of the main living room was kind of the displaying new books and everything, and then the nursery was, the nursery which they put an innate cram into it and everything. The nursery was where the infant baby books, the cardboard books, and everything were, and then across the way you had first-time chapter books, and those were in this kind of like a kid's room, the early chapter books and all that. And then in the dining room, they put all of the science and educational stuff. And then in the master bedroom, they had all of the young adult stuff. And that was where I found out about Redwall and Brian Jacques and all of that.
You pretty
And
much
actually
had
met.
your childhood was pretty much you had a lot of freedom, you had access to a lot of good literature, good stories,
Yeah.
and that sort of pretty much started to forge your personality.
Right, and I mean, for that reason, I mean, that's one of my driving factors is I feel like I did get a really good childhood, not because of white male privilege, but just because I got the right parents.
Your
And
parents did what my parents did. They
yeah,
gave
yeah,
me a big open field for me to make my own choices, my own freedom, but there's still that
yeah,
fence that keeps me from going too far out and hurting
right,
myself. They pretty much gave
right,
me enough
right,
freedom to make my mistakes, but
yeah.
they didn't like overprotect me. That's
Exactly, and that's part of what drives me is like I feel like I have to make good on that. Like I've got to do something with that. And so I was very much into all of that. And Hitchhiker's Guide was huge. I was getting into reading tons of adult fiction. When I say we read Frank Herbert's Dune as a bedtime story, that was at age 8.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, and that later evolved as I got to be a teenager and everything. That evolved to us like sitting around, like when Harry Potter came out. We read the first Harry Potter novel as a family. Like we would each read a chapter and pass it off, and that kind of
Harry
thing.
Potter.
And yeah, and Brad Strickland was not to not to digress too much, but he was really huge on for me because as a kid who was developing an interest in writing, I started talking. He would sit there and talk to me. He came in. He was very involved with Hobbit Hall. He did some autograph parties for his books there. He lives in Georgia, I believe, in Savannah. And so he would come up and he would do these things, and he was fantastic. He would come dressed as the characters from his books and everything. Big cosplay dude before cosplay was a thing, and he would come dressed as the characters and everything. And then decades later, when I was I was looking for a publisher for Eros Empire. He actually, I got back in touch with him, and he actually remembered me and gave me a lot of advice about how to go about finding a publisher. And so I thought, it's just so cool. And he's actually thanked in Eros Empire.
I gotta remember to get the book. I'm moving, so I have to budget a bit. But your book is definitely on the list of stuff I want to read, because not just because you're a YouTuber I like, but because I'm like looking at all the reviews and people are saying that this is actually well written and actually made them think. I like that. It's not only a well-written story, but one that actually is a good commentary. Just like Battle Royale is a good commentary on the Japanese government.
Right. Excellent book. Not so great a movie, but excellent book.
Oh, yeah. The movie, not so good. The graphic novel, great. The novel, also great.
Yeah.
The unofficial sequel, equal. Yeah,
one thing that's funny from the sequel, I like the scene where the guy in the sequel says that it costs $1.8 million U.S. American dollars to raise a child up to adulthood. So I tell my parents, when I'm rich and famous, I'm going to give you $1.8 million, and they always say, well, what about all the years we supported you after age 18? And I'm like, do you want $1.8 million or not?
I love that. That reminds me of the joke in Calvin and Hobbes, where it's like, Calvin's dad is asking him to shovel the walkway when he's like, well, how much do I get paid? Like, I'll give you $1. $1? I mean, come on. Well, you're about to do the job for free because I said so. I'll take the $1. Smart kid.
Yeah. Exactly. And so and that's but anyway, thank you. And that was the goal. I mean, and that was obviously that's as people have noticed, I do wear my Ayn Rand influence on my sleeve in Eros Empire. It's not so prominent in other writings, but trying to get, very much what I admire about Ayn Rand, even if you don't agree with her, what you cannot, I don't think you can deny, is that she knows how to incorporate her beliefs into a compelling story.
Yeah.
And that's like it's kind of like even if I don't agree with somebody's political beliefs or economic beliefs or what have you, if they can write them into a compelling story, I can appreciate them. Jerry Purnell is far more pro-military than I am, and I don't agree with. He considers himself to be just to the right of Genghis Khan, but as he put it, but I cannot tolerate. I don't agree with his viewpoints, but I can read his writing because he incorporates his beliefs into a compelling story. The flip side of that would be like, I'm very critical of the John Norman Gore novels. One, because they're, sexist, misogynist crap.
I have seen that video, and damn.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I know. And it pisses me off. I try not to talk to the Gorian fan base too much because it's like, okay, this guy just expressed love for this woman by picking up a large rock and knocking her down with it.
Yeah,
and they say,
anybody who supports that 100%.
What you need to understand is that Earth and Gore are two different places. And I'm like, and one of them doesn't exist. But but it's like, no shit. So it's like, oh, it's a different culture, and you have to understand. It's like, I get it's a different culture. It still pisses me off, It's like, it's kind of like there's a problem in South America with rainforest, indigenous rainforest tribes that take children and bury them alive as part of their sacrificial rituals. And
that's still not cool.
Yeah, I get that that's their culture. I don't like it, I still don't like it. But anyway, even all of that would be excusable if the books were not so goddamn boring. It's like if you read Tarnsman of Gore is a good read in and of itself. The misogyny, a little bit of the misogyny is hinted at, but it's kind of the whole slavery thing is kind of in the background, and so you can read that one and enjoy it. And there's no question why that became such a huge hit. I mean, it's just like Terry Brooks and Terry Goodkind and David Eddings, all of those the great Sword and Planet fantasy writers and everything. Yeah, and plus, I mean, let's be honest, it's mostly ripped off of John Carter of Mars, so it follows a very successful template. But anyway, you can read that, and it's fine, but then the minute you step into Outlaw of Gore, into Priest Kings of Gore, into all
It
of
pretty
these
much
things,
takes a left turn into what the fuckery, why am I reading this, and if
it's
there is a
not.
hell, I'm probably going there for reading this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, not even that so much. See, even all of that would be excusable. All of that I could tolerate, except that he has no concept of pacing. It stops immediately. The action constantly stops so that Tarl Cabot or Jason Marshall or whoever the main character of the book is can deliver these long soliloquies about how men are supposed to relate to women, and you don't just bring the action full stop whenever you need to rant about something
It's
like
like a
that,
bad anime. It's like a
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
manga
and it's
anime that just stops the action to have bad dubbing.
funny. There's actually an anime that's largely based on the Gore novels. I believe it's Fencers of Minerva. I
Oh
believe
boy.
Fencers Fencers of Minerva. It's actually not bad, mainly because there is kind of a traditional marriage, man and woman serving man element to it, but it's not, the misogyny is not as pronounced, so it's watchable, it's enjoyable, but it obviously has everything is obviously based on directly from Gore
So
and all that.
speaking of
Yeah,
anime, is there any anime you like to watch or in your free time or anything?
absolutely. My favorite anime series is the Big O.
The
No
Big
question.
O.
Big
That is,
O.
hey, that's a respectable anime. It's not one
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I like particularly, but this is why I'm asking. I want your
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And the Big O is far and away my favorite. And I'll show you, I'm charging my iPhone as we speak. I'll show you how much of a fan of the Big O I actually am. This is what I put on to listen to at night when I'm driving around town.
Makes it sound like you're in like an old cop, like an old crime drama,
Yeah,
just going
right.
around, be like, this is my
Yeah,
life, going
and
around, just driving.
Atlanta has a wonderful nightlife, but the crime is so, like the downtown. There's actually not a lot of crime, and it's kind of like couldn't some of you people be stabbing each other so that I can look at you impassively and not care?
You actually kind
Yeah,
of wish you were in one of those old
yeah,
crime
yeah.
not dramas.
But yeah, I mean, so Big O. I mean, Big O is really it's one of the few science fiction things that really nails film noir. So that one, Neon Genesis Evangelion is
I
amazing.
I'm not a big fan of it because my opinion, I find it to be a bit too pretentious. And the end of Evangelion, although I will give it has great imagery, the artwork is great, it is nightmare fuel inducing. But
Well, I like nightmare inducing,
I will
but I
respect your opinion. I mean, let's face it, when it comes to the fan base, it's either you love it or you hate it. And
yeah,
I do not like Shinji. I mean, if they just made him a little less whiny, the show would be
yeah.
a
I
little
mean,
more tolerable. But
well, you have to understand that the whole basis of that was the creator did it while he was undergoing psychotherapy for depression, and so
oh,
actually, yeah, it's Shinji's journey is his journey. That's why at the end of the TV series, we don't resolve the actual conflict. What we resolve is Shinji's internal battle because that's what he's dealing with. And so,
really?
yeah, so Asuka and all of the other characters represent different elements of, the id, ego, superego, and all of
Fair
his
enough. Fair enough.
psychological. Yeah,
I can understand
kind
that,
of.
but hey, I respect your opinion. Anything else? Because it seems you
Uh,
like the stuff with the more, ones that supposed to make you think more rather than just straight up
right.
action.
Yeah, I can't get into like Inuyasha. I don't like Inuyasha. Although I do love it when he says things like, "Yes, my sword is now 5 feet long and glowing bright red."
Yeah, it's
Um,
like, giggity.
yeah, right, right. I like Trigun just as a show. Obviously, it's not that deep, but I like Trigun. It's a fun show. Paranoia Agent is brilliant. If you haven't seen Paranoia Agent, that's incredible. Lane is incredible. Lain. And then of course there are the Ghost in the Shell. I love both of the Ghost in the Shell movies and the TV series. Listen, when you watch the TV series, listen whenever a door opens, it's the sound effect from the game Doom.
Really?
Yes. Watch just the
Oh, I didn't know
that
that.
sound.
I gotta go back.
Yeah. It's so it always pulls me out of it because I expect to hear
The whole
It's,
the demons.
right. So Ghost in the Shell is amazing. The Animatrix.
Oh,
The
I love that, especially
yes,
when it was
yes.
showing the start of the whole war. I mean, especially with the
Yeah,
apple,
yeah.
with the robot holding the apple and then just destroying everybody. In this,
Hmm.
it's beautifully done. I mean, all the sequences are just. I love
That gave
stuff like
yeah.
this because
And
each different.
that's my favorite of all the Matrix movies. That is my favorite. And I've always loved adult themed animation anyway. Like Heavy Metal is one of my favorite movies and that sort of thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
my band that I'm in, Leaving Babylon, it has a strong stoner rock element. And like one of the first things we did was we all sat down and watched the movie Heavy Metal.
Yeah. That.
And just like drawing so much inspiration from it. And then I have like right off camera, I have a huge stack of heavy metal comic books actually. And it's funny, my drummer Keith, I said, I love heavy metal, I love the comic book, and he said they made a comic book out of that.
I'm actually just thinking that. I'm like, they made a comic
Yeah,
book?
you didn't know they made a comic
No,
book,
no.
dude? It's
The only time I ever heard of heavy metal is when I went on the TV Tropes Nightmare Fuel page and the Nostalgia Critic review of it. I didn't know they made a comic.
dude, fuck yeah. I mean, it's like, and this isn't even half my collection of heavy metal.
Damn.
I mean, yeah, it's one of the best. I mean, this is where like Julie Strain got famous. Serpieri, one of my favorite graphic novel artists. Serpieri was good. There's amazing Boris Vallejo, Luis Royo, all the major cats. Got going
Yeah.
doing heavy metal, and as you can see, they all have the scantily clad, what Anita Sarkeesian would call fighting fuck toy
Oh
on the
yeah.
cover. And
Such as she's gonna mention Samus Aran
yeah.
because of other M.
Hmm.
And let's not
Well,
forget about Ivy and Chun Li and and
yeah,
Cammy and
yeah.
there's just so.
My guess, and now that I'm saying this out loud, it will probably there's very little of these that I can actually show on
Yeah,
camera.
obviously
But
I can't
but
edit for shit.
yeah. But I think what we're ultimately going to, and she may say this now that now that I'm saying this out loud, she may actually go with this angle, but probably what she's going to say is that, like, the purpose of the fighting fuck toy is to portray a woman's resistance to rape as being something that a man can control and use as entertainment. Blah, 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 blah. But anyway, and
I'm probably going.
I didn't even unwrap this one.
I will take that bet. I will take
Yeah.
that bet. If she does do that, feel free to use this segment from the video and then say, called it. Just make a small,
Yeah.
like, 20-second video.
Yeah.
I mean, just
And it's,
honestly. So,
yeah.
so you like some of the classic anime, but what about some of the modern anime, like Sword Art
Modern
Online, Naruto, One Piece, and...
it's one of the problems I have with a lot of current anime is that it is no longer written with a Japanese audience in mind. It is written for the American audience. So like I enjoy I like Full Metal Alchemist, but I like it a lot, and I love the relationship between Alphonse and Edward Elric, but
Oh yeah.
and that was something that I was an influence on me in my current project in the Vessel Chronicles was because my story is two brothers, so I was trying to think how do we, get kind of the same feeling, and but I like that, but then I like Death Note. You know,
No,
Death
Death
Note
Note
was
was really good, especially since there wasn't that much action. It was a psychological cat
right,
and mouse game. Also, I like
absolutely.
L. He is because a lot of people have actually surmised that he is actually autistic. It makes
Hmm.
sense. He acts like someone
Absolutely.
with autism. He's very intelligent,
Yeah.
but his social skills and the way he acts, his movement,
Yeah.
I can actually relate to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, he's a
But and
badass
I
tennis player.
right,
Did
right,
you
and
know
I
originally
can, yeah, I
that
mean, I can.
scene would have some prototypes of the scene was actually going to be them playing golf? Could you just imagine L playing golf?
No, yeah, no, I don't. That doesn't have quite the same tension building
And
to it.
yeah,
But they might as well be fishing, you know.
that would
But
actually be hilarious. It's like,
but see, one of the things you have to understand about anime, and there's a really good. If I can put my
okay.
finger on it, I keep trying to find things. There's a really good book by Susan J. Napier about anime, and she does a really great cultural analysis of anime. You will have a new appreciation of hentai by the time you're done reading that book. And she does a really brilliant analysis. And one of the things she points out is that in Japan, you know, in the Western world, in the whole rest of the Western world, we have this sort of almost romantic fascination with the apocalypse and the end times, and nuclear war and surviving nuclear conflict and all
Industries.
that. We have this almost fascination with it. The Japanese actually see themselves in a way as living in a post-apocalyptic culture because they got the nuclear
Yeah, they
bombs.
got nuked to
They
hell.
yeah, they got nuked. They actually have dealt with that kind of nuclear fallout, that kind of devastation, and that comes through in the anime. And that's why you see like in Akira, in Ghost in the Shell, in all of these, you see, even in Big O, you see this huge sense of transformation. Transformative elements are huge in those because society, the world, existence being completely transformed catastrophically. That's the central theme to anime, and the classic anime, which was when it was being done for a Japanese audience, was very prominent. And even in like there's a really good kind of pulp series anime series called The Minion Tank Police, which was the first anime I ever saw. I remember ever
Man,
seeing as
you're
a
saying
kid.
just so many
Uh,
old school '90s anime that
yeah,
I don't even know half of them. I mean, I like recognize Akira, but because that's like,
yeah.
okay, turn your textbooks on anime to page one. You'll see Akira about a little psychic badass who's probably the prototype of Mewtwo. Actually, I've
I,
seen that joke before.
Yeah, I turned 30 2 days ago, and I already feel so goddamn old. But anyway, but yeah, it's like that element is gone in a lot of the current, and plus a lot of it's about vampires now, and I fucking hate vampires.
Ugh.
But but a lot of that's gone in the anime that is now being made and marketed to an American audience. And so that I don't like. That I mean, it's like now it's just Katsuhiro Otomo goes from making Akira and Memories and all these brilliant things to making Steam Boy, which was good, but it's just capitalizing on the steampunk craze, you know.
It's
And it's
true, but
getting
and there are still
yeah,
good modern anime that can tell a good story. I mean, Full Metal Alchemist, you could definitely see as a commentary
yeah,
on U.S. war in Afghanistan. You could definitely see as well as a bit of World
yeah,
War II influence,
mhm,
especially in the first anime where Edward is spoiler alert, transported into another dimension, which is basically our world in World War II, and
yeah,
the deaths of everyone powers the other
yeah.
world. I mean, that's a nice little
Right.
commentary
Exactly,
on.
exactly, and that's I mean, and that coming back, bringing all of that back around to the ultimate of how I knew I wanted to be a writer. When I was 12, I read about in a computer game magazine they were making a video game adaptation of "I Have No Mouth and I Must
Oh,
Scream" by
that I
Harlan.
love that story, and the game is.
Yes,
Why haven't they
the game.
remade that one?
I know. Well, the game should have been. I mean that game. predated all of the great moral conflict games, you know, Heavy Rain and BioShock and
Yeah,
all these. They have to
especially
make
and in the
really,
novel, it
yeah,
had one of the greatest heroic
yeah,
sacrifices, in which,
yeah, yeah.
honestly, I mean,
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's brilliant. It's my favorite game, my favorite short story. Anyway, I found out about Harlan Ellison and his writing, and he captures, especially in matters of the apocalypse, of nuclear disaster, and all that. He really cuts through the Americanized bullshit and really captures the deep, penetrating cynicism of it. And I read his stories, and it was I read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I read Repent Harlequin Said the TikTok Man. I read Jeff D is 5. He immediately became my favorite author to such a degree that, to show you
whoa,
up here, whoa, careful, can you see that? That is my Harlan Ellison collection up there.
yeah,
There's almost 30 books there,
ooh,
and that's the
yeah,
only, yeah, he's the only author that I collect obsessively like that. Like, I've got 3 hardcover copies of Stalking the Nightmare, you know,
impressive.
and I've got a couple of signed books, uh, and it's such an and I read his stories. I read Repent Harlequin Said the TikTok Man, and A Boy and His Dog, and The Death Bird, and Paladin of the Lost Hour, and Pretty Maggie Money Eyes, and Whimper-of-Foot Dogs, and all of these brilliant stories. And I thought, it was like the gates had been opened. It was like, these are the stories I have been trying to find my whole life. And my parents said, we don't think you're ready for these yet. And I was like, God damn it! But I spent about a year annoying them about it, and they were like, okay, fine. And for like my 13th birthday, you know, I got my little stack of presents, and half of it was Harlan Ellison books plus the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream game. So it was kind of like, here, shut up. And and so that I had you know, it was such a great thing, and
Hey, did you ever beat
uh,
that I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream game? You actually
yeah.
got the good ending.
Yes, I got the good ending where you yes, you revive the lost tribe of humanity on the moon and everything.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
I've got
impressed. That is the mark of a good gamer if you can beat an old school, point and click adventure game, because those things are hard as hell to beat.
well, I do actually have the now out of print strategy guide that Mel Odom wrote, and it's this is where I first read the story I Have No Mouth
Oh,
and I
they
Must
actually include a
Scream.
story in the strategy guide? Wow.
Yeah, they put the original stories in there, and it was just amazing. And during my time where I was not allowed to read Harlan Ellison, I kept this one in hiding, and I would sneak it out and just read a little bit. By the time I actually got the game, I beat it in about 3 days because I knew everything to do, you know. And so my enjoyment, I love the game. I still go back and play through it every now and then. But my real enjoyment when I finally got the game was going around and doing all the devious shit and seeing what would happen, fucking everybody over and seeing the sick, disturbed outcomes. But yeah, and from that point on, I knew, we already talked about my musical epiphany, and Harlan Ellison was my writing epiphany, and I knew that this would be the course of my life and the course of my what I do, and that is culminated now. We're very excited to announce my band, Leaving Babylon. We're working on our first album, and one of the songs on that album was one that I wrote after a friend. Long story short, a friend kind of stabbed me in the back
Oh,
a year ago, and it was a really bad time in my life, and I wrote that song, and the real inspiration was a short paragraph-sized story by Harlan Ellison I kept coming back to, that I kept reading the whole time that I was kind of going through that process. I kept thinking, this story fits perfectly. Harlan Ellison graciously agreed. He and I have gotten to know each other over the years. He graciously agreed to read that story for the album, and we recorded him a couple weeks ago. He will be appearing on the Leaving Babylon album,
Wow.
and yeah, and that is like that for me. It's just it's the it is the it's like I've come full circle. I've collaborated with my favorite author. This is
It's
tremendous,
it's like
you
it's
know,
a
for me.
dream come true for someone like you. You actually
Oh,
okay. So let's see if I get this straight. You are a successful ranter, you are a successful writer, and you are a successful musician.
yes.
Dude, you are awesome.
Thank you, thank you. Now, yeah, I'm successful in terms of my reputation. In terms of my pocketbook, we still have a ways to
Well,
go,
yeah, but it
but
takes time when it comes to YouTube revenue. I mean, I when I started doing YouTubing like in November, I knew I would not be making the big bucks at least for like 2 years, and then, even then, there's a chance I'm not going to be a big dog.
yeah, I it's easier to make money now on YouTube just because they have they have made it much easier to monetize. Back in the day, it was like if you monetized the wrong video and there was maybe some content in there you couldn't monetize, then you were fucked and you could possibly lose your account. So back then, I was very, very careful about what what videos I
I'm
monetized
sorry
because
to
like
interrupt, but I'm being called. Let me just pause for a sec. Sorry about that, people.
yeah, but now it's much much easier to monetize your YouTube videos. And so it's just like if there's something in there you can't monetize, they just say monetization rejected. That's it, and you go on. So I can go through and monetize all my videos, and if there's something they don't like, they just don't approve it for monetization. And so it's much easier to do that. And I'm supposed to get my very first, after all these years, my very first paycheck from YouTube fairly soon. I'm trying to figure out how to integrate my YouTube AdSense account with Google AdSense with my bank account, trying to do all that
Oh, it
technical
is so
business.
confusing. I mean, I needed to help from my mom, and she knows this sort of things. I mean, if I tried to do it on
Yeah,
my own, it would have been me like trying to begin to read a book that's in Latin that suddenly goes into Egyptian that suddenly goes into
yeah, yeah.
Arabian. I wouldn't even
Right,
know the
right, right.
difference.
hmm Yeah, yeah. So I'm navigating through all of that crap, but yeah, and now, I mean, I try to pay. I don't want to just be like, what is it? The reply girl is that girl that just does a reply to the most popular
Yeah,
videos
I whenever
to
I
get.
try to send video response to someone, and unfortunately they're taking them away. Yeah, yeah.
Wait, they're taking away video responses?
You didn't hear? September 12th, they're retiring the video response answers. You can't.
Fuck!
I know.
I won't be able to take smug satisfaction when I ignore hateful video responses now.
I love that. I love that's why you're upset. But in all
Yeah,
seriousness, yeah, it's
yeah,
gonna be a lot harder to do this because well, how am I supposed to know if someone did a response to like my work?
yeah,
I
yeah,
like to
yeah.
think that video responses are a good way to learn people's
Right.
opinions.
Well, that's the thing too. Is it's like even though I say that humorously, but even so, it's kind of like I will always take the time to respond to somebody that does a video about me because I feel like they took the time. They at least I at least ought to watch it. I ought to give them a response and that kind of thing. So I'll always watch and if I feel like there's something to say, respond to that sort of thing. But that's a shame. I mean, I wish they weren't doing that, but I don't know why. I don't know why they would do
Well,
that, but it's
who knows? But yeah,
yeah.
you're not like the video girls. When you do a response, you make sure to give information, explain what's going on, give a good opinion, and maybe a solution if there's like a problem.
Right.
You actually are doing a proper way to do a video response.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's one of those things that, like, I mean, it's not the most politically correct thing in the world to say, but there is this huge deluge of what they call, girl on the internet syndrome. That it's just these girls that have these blogs. I've actually thought about doing an ironic video series where I put my hair up in pigtails and calling it "Cute Girl Blog," where I'll be "Cute Girl Blog." Okay, and there'll be like lots of fast cuts, so it's like okay, everybody, today I was at the mall, and I was like, and and just all this stupid shit, and it's like, okay, the only reason you're doing this is because, and the only reason you're getting any attention is because your cleavage is showing, and that's the whole purpose. I could watch it with mute, and it doesn't matter what you're saying, and it's such a,
It
and
reminds
don't get me
me
wrong,
of
I
someone
love
who did
cleavage,
a top 10, hated yet
yeah,
most popular YouTubers, and he mentioned that,
yeah.
and he said, "What would happen if a guy did that?" And he like shows himself standing, and you can see his bulge, and he's like, "Wow, that murder was upset. Like, subscribe this video." Yeah,
Exactly. Well, it's like, I mean, it's just I love cleavage, obviously, and I
oh
love
yeah.
boobs and all that. But
If you want porn, just get
yeah,
porn.
I'll go to that. YouTube, for me, YouTube is about is about discussion and ideas and that sort of
And a
thing.
guy
And
getting hurt when he does something really stupid.
right, right. And it's like, and it's kind of like I used to. There were a bunch of them I subscribed to because I just thought, wow, she's beautiful. And I know I'm going to catch hell for naming names, but like Britney's Official was one. Ariel is Hamming. I like Ariel a lot, but she just kind of digressed into this sort of, like professional lesbian thing where it's like, okay, we asked 5 lesbians what their favorite finger to put in their pussy is. So what did they say? And it's like, it's just stupid. Like, who gives a fuck? So that Ariel as Hamming was great, and then she kind of lost it. And I can think of there's the one everybody knows who she is. She's this blonde-haired, very thin blonde-haired girl, and I can't think of her name, but everyone would know her immediately if they saw her. And so most of those I ultimately just unsubscribed from because there's not the content to go with the attention they're getting. Lacey Green is great. Go Green, Lacey is great. She's awesome. She has content to go with her looks. There are a few others like that maybe aren't so active anymore, unfortunately. The attention. Good. She's not so active anymore. But a good friend of mine, Chrissy, the World Within. She does a lot of marijuana advocacy and that kind of thing. And she's got substance to go with the looks, and they all and the ones that have real substance, those are the ones I'll listen to. But I mean, I don't need to hear like little like glittery princess sounds and bouncing around and perky shit.
Yeah, that gets very annoying. If I wanted to see that, I'll just watch My Little Pony.
Right.
Yeah, I'm actually a brony.
I feel you, man. I feel you. I've actually I'll show you my my lead singer actually got me a roll of My Little Pony stickers as a gift a while
Oh,
back,
nice.
and yeah, so you can't see it, but they all border. They're that's the border of my computer monitor is My
I
Little
believe
Pony
you because
stickers.
I can see some of them are already gone. Yeah. So
Yeah, and
so yeah, the whole
oh
brony community. I'm actually kind of glad there's a show like that.
yeah,
A well-made girl show that both men and women can enjoy. And then Anise
yeah,
Sarkeesian says that it's bad that Twilight Sparkle became a princess, despite completely missing the point that she earned that title.
yeah.
Although, if
Well, that
I were to actually change the ending, I would make it so there's no more of the show, and that she decides to take to not take the title because she would have to leave her friends. She would rather stay with her friends than to keep the
yeah,
title. If they went that route, I bet a lot of people would say, "Wow, this is actually really mature, really touching. Stick with
yeah.
people you care and love about." The,
Well, we don't know if they're not going to go that way. I
yeah,
mean, we
next
the
episode, first episode next season. Then, she gets rid of her powers. There we go, and we're back to status quo. Although that's not to
yeah.
say that I wouldn't mind seeing Princess Twilight, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see where they go. Do you have any idea when the show comes back? I haven't been paying
It's
attention.
supposed to be in the last quarter, so I'm gonna assume maybe October. I don't know. After this video, I'll look it up and I'll let you know.
Yes.
We all gotta stick
Cool. Cool.
together. And hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're also proving
Yeah.
that the stereotype of bronies aren't always the same. I mean, did you ever see?
Yeah.
I
Well, I
remember
mean,
seeing John Enos on World's Dumbest. He was wearing a T-shirt of what looks like a John Enos version of a pony. So maybe
mhm.
he's one. And I'm not gonna mess with John Enos. That guy could kick my ass.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. Well, it's like it's like there was this. I tell you what made me ultimately like I got into the series. You've probably seen my My Little Pony video. I got into the series because someone wanted me to do an analysis of that, and so I got into it because of that. And I found all of a sudden I found I'm actually looking forward to sitting down and watching the series, and I was actually excited about it. So. But when I finally was like, okay, I'm just going to have to come to terms with the fact that I am into this thing, was when I saw there are two T-shirts. One of them is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon with the prism, and instead of just
Rainbow
a
Dash
rainbow,
doing the Sonic Rainbow.
rainbow
Okay, I
dash.
gotta find that one because that looks
Yes,
awesome.
so awesome. And then and then there's another one that I have. I have the shirt that it says Led Zeppelin World Tour 1977, and it shows Apollo like this, on between the two things. There's a shirt. It's very hard to find, but God, I've got to get it. That says My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and it's got Rainbow Dash doing Apollo in the middle.
Nice.
And I was like,
It shows
oh
that
my,
the
yes,
whole movement has
yeah,
infiltrated everywhere. You see
yeah,
parodies of Doctor Who's, you see musical bands,
Doctor
you
Who.
see animation, and the best
Mhm.
thing is the show is preaching about. It's not just some stupid show like SpongeBob that's just promoting like idiocy, but it's promoting how like
Yeah,
be friendly to each other, be friends. It's like it.
yeah, yeah. Or yeah, it's so refreshing to see a kids show with substance, unlike like Teletubbies, which basically just promotes like I guess having Down syndrome or something. But yeah, I mean like between Teletubbies and SpongeBob, and it's so good to see a really good solid My Little Ponies, or a really good kids show like My Little
And of
Ponies come
course, there
out
have been
now.
bad episodes. We're looking at you, mysterious Mayor Duell. Well, but you
Yeah,
know what? Lauren Faust, she seriously did a great
yeah,
job. I mean, this wasn't done by some, male, male patriarchal guy who just wanted to sell toys to
no,
little girls. No, this is someone who grew up with My Little Pony, wanted to make it better,
yeah,
and she succeeded beyond expectations.
yeah.
She made it
And
20%
there's
cooler, or 200%. So she
Yeah,
went for it.
there are kids series like that I would love to. I would love to like if I could be in her position where I could they'd say what series do you want to bring back and redo and maybe redo as a crossover adult series, kind of like what they did with Batman the animated
Yeah, yeah,
series and
that
that
was a
sort of thing.
great one.
Make it really profound, and those are the people that did Big O, by the way.
Yeah,
So
no
yeah,
one does
and
it good.
yeah, exactly. But take something like that and make it like a crossover kids adult type of a thing. There's so many I would want to bring back, like SWAT Cats. Like no, SWAT Cats was here and gone. It got like what 2 or 3 seasons. Such a brilliant idea. These two great characters, Jake and Chance. These two great characters. Already tons of fan fiction of them butt fucking on the internet,
Rule
and
34.
so
If it exists, there is a porn of
really,
it. And I like to say Rule
yes, indeed.
34B. If it exists and there is a porn of it, there will be a written story of two male characters butt fucking each other.
Yes. Go on.
Don't go into the
There's a web.
Naruto section.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, there's a. I'll point to all the people. I'll go ahead and point you in the right direction. Go on your Google and look up the Tail Underground. TAIL. The Tail Underground. Furry fandom, furry animation. All of it erotic. Nearly all of it. Well, a lot of it very homoerotic and very interactive. So wonderfully interactive stuff. Be sure to take the bellboy into the broom closet and jerk him off. There are Flash animated stories. One of them is Jake and Chance and SWAT Cats butt fucking. There is a Star Fox one that is great. That's Star Fox and Bill just going to
Okay, I
town.
think
And
I'm
with
sorry. Okay, I think I'm sorry. I'm gonna need
okay,
to 1 second erase that image from my mind. Ah, it burns.
Well, it's really cool because it looks like they're just fucking butt fucking on a bed, and then when they actually finish, it pans out and they're actually in zero G on the wall. So it's kind of cool that way.
Okay,
They
so if
at
you were
least
to
stay.
redo like a whole, revitalization as you're describing, and you could take any
Yeah.
other show, and I know you want SWAT Cats, is there any other shows
Well,
you would want to bring back?
one thing, as we mentioned, Star Fox. If you go in the classic issues of Nintendo Power, there was back when Star Fox was new, in like I think it was what '92 that game came
I
out.
think that was about
Uh,
right.
yeah, the original Nintendo Powers back in the day had a Star Fox
They
comic, like a
sort
Star
of
Fox.
advertise for the game and
Yeah,
maybe give some
as
advice.
ever as the game. The comic was fantastic, and the comic was fantastic. It was beautifully drawn. It was the only thing that got me is obviously the text was written by a non-English native English speaker because like they would always put the bold emphasis on the wrong word. So like if the line was there's somebody at the door, it would be somebody at the door, and that kind of.
There's
But
somebody at the door. So it's like
yeah, exactly.
just imagine William Shatner's reading it to you, and you pretty much got it.
There is somebody at the door, haha. Yeah, exactly that. I would love. I wish that whole canon, the direction they took it in, that whole canon has been lost in the original series. And we get, and so like what was it, Star Fox Adventures came out, and what's the female love interest in that,
Crystal, and
and
it was all basically a
yeah,
reskin of
right,
Monster Planet, which
right.
Anita, that actually still makes me angry how
Oh God, I know. But that's the thing is, they developed a wonderful love interest for him in that comic book was Sparrow Phoenix, and it is pronounced Phoenix. Don't argue
I'm
with me
not going to
about this.
argue because I haven't read it.
No, I was saying to everybody else on YouTube, clearly you cannot spell because it is spelled Phoenix, and da da da. It's like, yeah, no shit, it's spelled Phoenix. She's a Phoenix. That's why it's Phoenix. But anyway, they had They had some great characters in there that were really well developed, and like when that Star Fox 2 was announced, then it was scrapped, and Star Fox 64 came out, and all of that canon was lost. It was
So you
ignored in
would
the beautiful
basically want to make a series based off of that.
series out of that,
You know,
like a graphic novel or something,
oh,
and
anime,
that
okay,
part
an anime, or maybe an anime, a Star Fox anime. That would actually work,
yeah,
probably work a lot better. Maybe, I don't know,
yeah,
maybe get the one who made Full Metal Alchemist. That could totally work. Or
yeah,
if
yeah,
I were to
Funimation,
bring
yeah.
something back, Battletoads. Now, hear me out. The original
Oh, I
idea
love
of
Battletoads.
Battletoads actually had a
Yeah,
pretty good premise if you actually went to the Nintendo Power comic.
right,
I
right.
think if they could bring it back in like the style of say Sonic Sat AM, it could probably
Mm.
work. As for the
Yeah.
original Battletoads cartoon, it was done by the guys who did the other
Hmm.
Sonic cartoon. To the point where
Yeah,
during a
yeah.
fight, one of the toads was squirting mustard at a bull while it was playing da 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 da
Yeah.
da.
Well, that's the thing we have seen that adult audiences will buy into their favorite characters from their childhood repackaged for an adult audience. Speed Racer came out; it didn't do that well, but they've tried that. But people will, certainly with Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, people will go see these as legitimate adult themed entertainment. And especially, and obviously, I mean, with the Chris Nolan Batman's movies, I mean, just those are landmark films. I mean, they're beautifully, perfectly done, and so we've seen that people will buy into that. So yeah, so you could start bringing back SWAT Cats, and you could bring back Star Fox, and there are others. Trying to think. I know I'm gonna the minute we turn off the camera, I'm gonna think of like 50 series I'd like to see
Humanoids?
brought back. I'm sorry,
Humanoids?
I don't know that
Oh,
one.
I'll pretty much
Yeah.
giant monsters take destroying the place. Pretty much action commando stuff.
Hmm.
It's just like GI Joe. They had to fight giant monsters instead of
Yeah.
Cobra. By the way, why don't they do a
uh,
remake of the whole GI Joe cartoon series? I could totally see that.
yeah, I could see G.I. Joe coming back. I would love to see, I mean, I don't think it would, I don't know if it's got the cultural relevance here in America to make it take off, but I'd love to see Ultraman come back. I mean, Ultraman was what Ultraman was what
Oh yeah.
all of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers
Oh
shit
yeah,
was
I
based on.
remember. I actually vaguely
Yeah,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
When I was a
and
kid, I
they
was just
brought
like,
back
what the hell is that thing? I didn't know what it was,
they
but I wanted to see it, and I never got to.
yeah, and they brought back they brought back Astro Boy as a movie. They brought
Wasn't
back
that one in development hell?
John Carter. Do
Wasn't
what?
the Astro Boy CGI one in development hell?
It may be because I didn't hear anything about it past it being
Yeah, I
announced, but
remember
I
it
remember
being
seeing
announced,
the
seeing like at the movie theater, like coming soon, and then never hearing about it again. Like
Yeah,
it was kind
yeah.
of like The
Um,
Hobbit, but then it actually came out, and
that
it was
actually came
good.
about. Yeah, and yeah. The Hobbit I liked. I hated Lord of the Rings. Long story. I've got a
Hey,
video on
hey,
my hate.
I respect your opinion. It's you may have a controversial opinion, but hey, it's still your opinion.
That's why I'm so popular, right? But yeah, I could totally see. They tried to bring back Astro Boy. They tried to bring back John Carter of Mars. John Carter of Mars I thought was really good. It's a shame it bombed. But there is a real market for that, and I'm trying to think. There's been actually a resurgence of Charlie Brown and Snoopy Peanut stuff because they started doing new features that are actually in the style of the classic
You
1960s
don't
features. Not
say.
like, yeah, yeah. What was it? They did a recent feature film. I can't think of the name of it. It was, of course, something, comma something. Charlie Brown was the title, but it's where Charlie Brown's trying to get Linus to, they're trying to help Linus get off his blanket,
Oh,
and
the
Linus is
security
basically,
blanket that was
yeah, and
coined
he's
thanks to Charlie
right,
Brown.
right,
I mean, okay,
yeah, and he's basically having like junkie like heroin withdrawal from nine.
so
It's
basically they're
great. I mean,
kind
it's
of talking about drugs, but without the whole in your face like Captain Planet would do. By the way, I
right,
think
right.
they could redo Captain Planet if they make it a little less cheesy.
That I'm sorry. That show is pure cheese. I can't.
Okay.
I remember being a kid and going to an Atlanta Braves baseball game, and they were going to have Captain Planet throw out the first
Wait,
pitch,
what?
and this guy dressed as Captain Planet walks out and picks up the ball and throws it out, and he walks off like it's like, okay, now to go check IDs at the Ramrod. He gets he gets he throws it out, and it's like, even as a kid I was like, well, I didn't expect him to actually fly in, but that was just fucking lame.
Also,
You
did you
know,
know that the Captain Planet was actually modeled after Tom Hanks because they originally were going to get Tom Hanks to voice him, but they couldn't get him?
okay,
Could you just imagine
okay,
that for a second? Tom Hanks voicing Captain
yeah,
Planet. I don't think his
yeah,
career could survive after that. Jim Curry,
no,
I don't know how he was able to get work after Captain Planet as playing
Tim.
Mal the
Oh,
robot.
well, Tim Curry's one of those cats. It's like,
Then again,
Tim
he
Curry's
somehow
like
was
no
able to
God
survive
will always.
after Rocky Horror Picture Show. I mean, that's just that's impressive.
Yeah, that's one of those movies. Like, how did all of those people went on to fame and fortune? Tim Curry, Barry Bostwick, Susan Sarandon, Meatloaf. Everybody went on to fame and fortune, except the guy that played Rocky. I mean, but yeah, everybody in that movie goes on to fame and fortune, and it should have been a career ender by
I
all
know. Maybe it's
accounts.
just because the movie was so bad it's good.
Yeah,
Although,
yeah.
hey, here's a
But
question for you: what would
sure.
happen if Michael Bay, M. Night Shyamalan, and Tommy Wiseau teamed up to make a movie?
Oh God. Well, you forgot Uwe Boll.
Okay, here's what I think: if there is a god, and even if there isn't one, some magical being will come down and just pick him up and just squish him like Cthulhu did to Justin Bieber in South Park. I if
Yeah.
there not, if there is a kind and loving God, he would not allow that. He would just be like, no,
I
no,
am.
no. I allowed the Holocaust. I allowed the nuclear war. I've allowed Honey Boo Boo. I'm not allowing
Yeah.
this.
I that like what Michael Bay, he's gotten a hold of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as we all know, and that is another series that I would love to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles brought back is as an adult. level, show or adult level movie like we're talking about. But what he's got in mind, one, he wants them to be space aliens, which fuck that, they're not space aliens.
I mean, I'm
They
willing to
felt they
buy maybe space aliens had something to do with the turtles. Like, I don't know, space alien crashed, some of the fuel came and went into the sewer, and there you go.
right, but the turtles became that they were normal turtles, mundane, everyday turtles that got into the retro mutagen ooze, and they became adult or
Teenage, well,
humanity,
technically teenage mutant ninja turtles.
yeah,
Also,
but
how would they explain
anthropomorphized.
Splinter? Was Splinter an alien? Is
No, well, Splinter, yeah, Splinter was he was a human that got spliced with a rat, but yeah, I mean, so that's they're going to have to work that around, but yeah, I would love to see that show done well because Kevin Eastman, who is now the editor of Heavy Metal Magazine, he was the original creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the day as a comic book, as a comic strip, a comic book, and all of that.
Parody of sorts.
Well, that's the thing is it actually was much much darker. There was a lot. It was a lot more bloodshed and violence and sex and all and wanton gratuity and all of that. Uh, yeah, and I'll tell you another series that very few people know about, and I'm sure you want to wrap this up soon, but yeah. Very few people know about that I would love to see brought back and made huge because it's a great idea. Is Scud? Are you familiar with Scud?
I heard the name, just don't know much about.
Yeah. Scud was this graphic novel series that it's the fans of the series are just like infuriated because they got all the way up to the last installment and the main guy that did it quit. I mean, just gave up. Like, I don't want to fucking do it. And he has since then said, okay, I'll do it. But after that, like, it's been years and years and nothing's happened. But yeah, you get up to that final fucking comic and we don't get it. But the idea of Scud is great. Scud is a disposable assassin robot, a disposable assassin that's been bought from a vending machine. You can buy assassins from vending machines.
Yeah, just put a couple quarters in, turn the key, and open up the little capsule, and boom, there's the assassin.
Precisely. And Scud, the idea is Scud finds out that his model, he's a disposable assassin, he will explode once he has killed his target. He realizes this as his target is about to die, so he takes his target, the guy he's supposed to kill, he takes him to a hospital and puts him on life support. And to pay the bills to keep the guy alive on life support, he has to go out and take contracts, to kill.
So basically is that's actually very interesting. He basically becomes self-aware of his existence, and basically it's going to ideas of what is a human life. I mean, he's a robot, but he has self-aware, and he wants to keep himself alive, so is he the same as a human or not? I can actually totally see that rebooted.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, and it would be it's so cool. And Scud, I mean, it has so much style. I mean, everything, all the pictures you see of Scud, he's got, like, his guns like this and shit. The way you would never fire a gun in real life,
It's always the image. It's like, oh, sideways, kill shot.
Oh, exactly, all that shit. It's fucking awesome. The reason it bombed, the reason it didn't finish originally, was they wanted to roll out Scud as being this big thing, and the first thing they rolled out was a Scud video game for the Sega Saturn.
Oh.
And the Sega, we all know what happened to the Sega Saturn. So, so Scud did not have the mainstream breakthrough they wanted it to have, and if that game and that system had been successful, then we would be seeing Scud movies and Scud TV shows and and T-shirts and all the stuff.
Scud action figures, despite the fact that it's violent. I mean, what was up with that? Why did that? So many violent and rated R movies got action figures and so on. RoboCop, Alien, Terminator. I mean, what?
Yeah, Tom McFarlane. Tom McFarlane did all of that. I mean,
true.
So that was definitely
true.
But Scud, I would love to see. I mean, well, the original series of Scud needs to be finished first of all. But I would love to see Scud brought back. There's another really brilliant, more recent series that's still going. It's still coming out. Uh, that it, it's just brilliant to me. It's around and Peanuts and all that, but it's by a guy named Jason Youngblood. I met him at Dragon Con one year at his booth. He has a series called Weapon Brown, and Weapon Brown is brilliant. It is about Charlie Brown as an adult and his career as a hired hitman.
Okay,
And
hold
it
on,
is
hold on, hold
absolutely,
on.
and it's
Time. Let me
yeah,
see if I heard that right. Charlie
right,
Brown this isn't canon. This isn't another. This is Charlie Brown as an adult dealing with being a
yeah,
hitman. You're
yeah,
a
in a
hitman,
post
Charlie Brown.
exactly in a post-apocalyptic future, and so the first issue alone, he's Lucy is the head of this vast corporate empire, and he's supposed to track her down. And so he goes into this nightclub where Schroeder, as an adult, is playing piano and everything and doing his thing, and he's ignoring Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown is this buff, kind of Mr. Clean looking guy with. He's got one arm is this robotic, Terminator type arm, and the other arm is really
Please
buff.
tell me
And he
this is
comes
supposed to just be a parody. It's not supposed to be taken seriously because
well, it's a parody, but it's just the best parody you ever fucking see. And so Linus is like, I mean, what's his name? Schroeder is ignoring Charlie Brown and everything, and so he shoves his head down on the piano and sticks the gun up to his head and says, "Where the fuck is Lucy?" He says, "Look, I don't know her, man. She's just this crazy bitch that comes and sits on my piano. I don't know, And yeah, and then it turns out later. It turns out later that his ultimate nemesis is an adult version of Calvin with a cyborg version of
are
Hobbes.
you
So
are you kidding
yeah,
me? An adult version of
it's the
Calvin with a cyborg
ultimate.
Hobbs.
Yeah. It's the ultimate awesome thing. It's so
It's
fucking
so
awesome. It's just yeah.
it's over the top
It's
and see it just childhood,
yeah.
innocent childhood characters just go
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just go like that. There is, I
Yeah, yeah.
know that you shouldn't laugh at something so wholesome becoming something so dark, yet there is just something
Yeah.
so twisted and funny about that.
I they the and yeah, and it's everything, like everything is taken to its most literal possible degree. So like the oh he's doing his internal narrative, and he says something like, "I needed to unwind. I knew Patty would know what to do," and and you see this Peppermint Patty based character in a doorway that's like a hooker with in prostitute clothes, and she says, "Hey, you Chuck," and everything, and it's just everything. It's so cool.
Wait,
It's so awesome.
Patty and what's her name? The girl who always calls Patty sir. Yeah, are they lesbians?
Uh,
Are they
I've
lesbians in the
only read
story?
I've only read like the first one, so I can't.
I
I don't
wouldn't be
remember. I don't.
surprised. I mean, let's face it, we all see that joke. Everybody's heard
Yeah,
the
yeah,
joke, and
yeah.
we've
Well,
been told.
Peppermint Patty was actually adopted by lesbian activist groups as their mascot in the
Yeah,
'70s.
you don't
So,
say.
uh,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And that was, I mean, that's what she's allegorical for. Peppermint Patty is allegorical for the women's movement, and all of that. And what's funny, I'll challenge you to some trivia. Do you know what Peppermint Patty's full name
You
is?
got me.
Patricia Reichart. Patricia Reichart. It only comes up 4 times in the entire series.
Damn.
Yeah, the entire in all Peanuts meat related media, it's only mentioned 4 times. But Patricia Reichart, and that's
You are a
I
bigger
always
nerd than I am. Quite literally. I mean,
oh
you're taller than me.
yes, very much so. Oh yeah, dude. I grew up on so much on Peanuts, and that is one of those things though where I don't want them to do too much with it now that Schultz is gone, because it would just be them, pilfering from his idea. I would love to see Judge Dredd brought back, and there have been some very noble attempts to try to bring it back. The most recent Dredd movie, if you haven't seen it, is
No, no,
amazing.
I know, I saw it. It
Yeah,
wasn't, the worst thing ever, but it was actually more respectable to the actual character than Sylvester
yeah,
Stallone's "I am the law,
yeah. Well,
law."
yeah,
Although it is funny
yeah. I
to
mean,
do that.
well, what I loved is they are totally in that movie. They are totally unencumbered by the fact that this is a fascist police state that we are on the side of. We are on the side of the fascist police state, and they don't apologize for that. They just do it. They just do the story. Whereas, in the Sylvester Stallone version, it's like, how do we, we've got to, bring about ultimate justice and all of this, and he's going to change the system and all that, and it just becomes very hackneyed and very
And
obvious.
Sylvester
So,
Stallone's "I am the law." I mean, let's
I
face
am the
it.
Lord.
It probably would have been so bad if he just did not do that.
And they even had Rob Schneider at one point make fun of him in the movie for doing that, where he says, if you weren't doing all of your I am the law, like he's making fun of, the cliche, I mean, the cheesiness of the movie
I
in the
love it
movie.
when like reboots or sequels make fun of the fact that the one that came before is bad. Like in
Yeah.
the new
Oh,
Godzilla, like in a new one of the Godzilla movies, Godzilla's fighting all these monsters. He takes on a cheap CGI, lizard monster, which is supposed to be a joke of our 1998 Zilla, and he just owns them in one move, whereas all the other
yeah,
monsters
yeah,
took
yeah.
some time.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, it's like, oh fuck, I lost my train of thought. But what was but yeah, I mean, there are so many like that just they bring them back and they just jack off all over the whole thing, and it
Yep.
doesn't really accomplish it.
So, by the way, have you heard about Bad Cop 69's big video against Anita Sarkeesian? He's actually says this is going to be like the biggest thing. He's going through all this research. It's going to be a really long video and that, you know, it, you might want to check it out later.
I will have to look. That'll be interesting to see what he says. I mean, I'm certainly interested. I mean, I'm thinking at this point I may just make a video and call it Anita Sarkeesian sex tape, and then have it be about something else, just because I would get like 500 million hits. No,
Well,
but
you probably should have
the
said it now because now anybody who's watched this is like, I'm on to you.
well, actually, I mean, actually, you can't do that on YouTube because you can get flagged down for
True. Let's
deception.
face it.
So yeah, and anything that said sex tape would get pulled immediately anyway. But I mean, it's in theory.
You could
Um,
just basically say
and,
Anita Sarkeesian saying the word fuck. That could work.
yeah. Well, actually, there was a thing amidst all of the Rule 34 stuff about Anita Sarkeesian. There was a thing about there was a brief thing where somebody had taken a few panels of a porn and gotten this girl that it's actually it's Lexi Bell or Lexi Love, one of those two. But for a minute, it looks like Anita Sarkeesian, and they were trying to like make it grainy enough to make it be like a home sex tape or something. And I thought, the payout for us is only there if it's actually her. Just fake shit doesn't do anything. If there were actually an Anita Sarkeesian sex tape,
I would
and
probably need to erase that from my memory. I don't need to see
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Cool, yeah, but I haven't heard Bad Cop 69. I haven't heard about what he's got coming. I'm certainly excited to see any more revelations regarding Anita, and I've been doing kind of my own research on the matter and everything, especially ever since John Doe dropped all that stuff.
Yeah, since we're
And so, yeah,
learning the real
mhm.
puppet master.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, the real man, the man behind the curtain in all of this is John
Hmm.
McIntosh, and we're learning. It's like I said, it's classic misdirection. We've been looking at the wrong thing the whole time, and that's why like I've wanted to do video responses to all of her videos that I haven't done yet, like the tropes versus women in films, the Hunger Games videos, the Legos videos,
Oh yeah,
all
I've
of this
done
stuff.
a lot of stuff. In fact, just recently I did
Yeah.
one talking about her Bayonetta one. I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
ugh.
right, where she advocates segregation of men and women,
No, I'm
but
just a little more
uh,
upset that she pretty much proved she did not even play the game. I mean, single mother,
yeah,
okay. You don't even have to look in the manual to see that it doesn't even say she's a single mother. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that's just You couldn't even read the
Yeah,
manual or even the Wikipedia synopsis.
right. But I mean, like that video. I mean, or that all of those videos. Now, I really don't have any reason to comment on them anymore because like there's so many points that I want to make. Like in Hunger Games, she's talking about damsels in distress and women in refrigerators. How these things where women die so that men can go save the day and everything and have a reason to save the day. And like that very thing happens in the Hunger Games, but she lets it go because it's a woman that's dealing with a woman in refrigerator thing. So I mean, it's like so many things I'd like to comment on, but at this point, it just seems pointless to say anything about that because we've all been bamboozled by
Still
this.
won't
We have
stop
all been
me
right.
from doing responses
Well, yeah,
because someone's got to. I just wish that she
yeah,
would
yeah,
listen.
right,
When
right.
I actually
Well,
did a video where I pretty much said that she makes me so angry, I would punch
mhm,
her the same way I would punch an idiot guy who said stupid stuff like this. And I got
yeah,
so much flack for it that I basically had to say, with apologies to Anita Sarkeesian, I'm sorry I said I wanted to hit you.
right.
Shouldn't have gone that far.
And then Anita can put up a violent murder fantasy of an actual person, and nobody says thing
I
one.
actually made a fan fiction on DeviantArt that's basically the sequel where she actually get
I saw
she
that.
actually gets killed by her own creation, who she couldn't even kill because she pretty much made it so she
Oh.
had no weaknesses.
Okay, I didn't see that one. I saw another
Yeah, I pretty
one
much
that sent
made
me
it
to
so she
deviant.
got an ironic death, and the ending
Oh,
wasn't that everything turned out magically good, but everybody worked for it. I actually tried to make it a decent story, not just someone getting angry. I actually went with what was given to me, and I made a good sequel.
yeah, yeah.
Pretty
Cool,
much,
cool. Yeah.
yeah. Double standards. Yeah, it's like she doesn't even understand that concept.
Well, what's interesting is it's like she like a lot of people condemns Duke Nukem Forever for having this overtly sexist tone and everything. And of course, the thing is, it's like Duke may be talking about the babes and everything, but at the end of the day, he is putting his life on the line to save
Although
them. And
I will give feminists this one. That scene where he tells those two that they were about to die, they're fucked.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pushing it even for Duke Nukem.
yeah. Well, I can't. I mean, honestly, though. I can't. I didn't personally have a problem with that scene. I can understand where people would be unnerved by it, but it's like I just can't. Duke can only be. I mean, Duke Nukem is a joke. He is a parody of all of those classic '80s action
The
heroes and
male
everything. That is,
stereotypes that
yeah.
yeah.
And so, I mean, he can't. If Duke Nukem had a really heartfelt response to that, or throughout the whole thing, he doesn't take anything that's happening seriously. And so if he took that seriously, it wouldn't really work for the character. And
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but Duke Nukem, I'm sorry, was a fun game. Everybody
No,
was
no,
Duke
I
Nukem.
actually understand. Duke Nukem Forever, I pretty much knew it wasn't going to be a very good game because of the time that was spent. I just pretty much went
Yeah,
through it, shot stuff, had a few chuckles, had a couple of the
yeah,
jokes,
yeah,
and it was just over. I mean, it wasn't a good game, but
yeah.
it wasn't a bad game, but it wasn't a very good
Yeah.
game. I mean, I would have given it.
Well, it's like I mean, I got it. I got it at GameStop for $5. The guy behind the counter said it's not a good $50 game. It's a good $5 game, and he's right. It's just a good time. It's just a good. But and the thing was, at the time when I got it, I had been trying to play Dead Space, which is fucking awful. And I know people are going to go crazy on your comments when I say that.
My opinion, Dead Space is a bit overrated. I mean, the visual. I
Yeah,
mean, especially since it's trying to be a horror game. I mean, okay, first time corpse jumps up, yeah, that freaks you
yeah.
out. After that, you just pretty much you see a dead body,
It's the same
shoot
thing.
it, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it.
Yeah, and the whole bullshit about having to shoot their limbs off, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, if they have a humanoid structure, their heart is still going to be in their chest, their brain is still going to be where you mainly want to shoot. This idea that you have to shoot their arms and legs off to kill them makes no sense. It's impossible to do. I fucking hate it. I was so bored. I was just bored out of my fucking mind, and it's so derivative. I mean, it's derivative of so many other
Still,
franchises. I was
Death
just like,
scenes
fuck
looked
this
pretty
shit.
awesome. I mean, seriously, seeing all the different death scenes, yeah, they definitely put a lot of effort into those.
Yeah, I mean, they put effort into the death scenes, but even so, it's like that. It's one of those things where if dying is the most fun part, that doesn't say doesn't say very much for the game. And Duke Nukem, you get Duke Nukem, it's just a good time.
Yeah,
It
you
was
just
just
wish that you could carry
fun.
more than two weapons at a time. That does get rather annoying, especially since.
Although I do have to say that does help the realism factor a little bit, because if you stop and think about it, in like Doom, the classic Doom game, you're carrying at one time a chainsaw, two shotguns, a Brenna 9mm, a chain gun, a
EFC.
chain. Yeah, these two like massive radioactive laser guns, and any number of other, and a rocket launcher
Okay,
on
here's
top
my
of all that.
solution. He stole a backpack from the Gallifreyans in Doctor Who.
Ah, there you go.
In fact, I think that's.
And you
I
do, and
think
a
here's a
backpack
funny
is a
theory.
power up in
Here's a
Doom. So
funny
there you
theory.
go. Sure.
Noah is the first Time Lord. Think about it. The Ark is bigger on the inside.
Ah, that explains a lot.
Doesn't explain how he got all the animals to all the different parts of the planet, but hey, I'm willing to give him that.
If you haven't seen it, go check out Non-Stamp Collector. It has a great video. It's a sort of animated video about the cartoon video about Noah trying to get everything ready to go, and it shows him in his little office that's built next to the ark, and he's like, and one of his two sons are coming in, and one of them's telling him, well, the was like the such and such creature that was hosting the head lice has died, so we need to get another one of those and find a new host for the head lice, and so on, and they're going into all this crazy stuff, and Noah's like, no wonder I'm going to turn into a hopeless alcoholic when this is all over. Yeah, it's fucking awesome, dude.
Here's
So
a
cool.
question. Okay,
Well,
here's something. Okay,
yeah.
let's just pretend God exists. Okay, He created all life on Earth and all life in the universe. So if there are aliens on another planet, do they have their own version of the Bible? Like, if there's giant slugs, do they have like a giant slug of Jesus with the beard on the cross? Or like, oh,
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of it's kind of, if you stop and think about it, there are so many we know that there are so many myths that parallel the Jesus myth, Odin and Krishna and Mithras, and it just goes on and on, all these different things. It's kind of like trying to say that Super Mario, we can know that Super Mario is the one true savior of the princess. Forget about all of these other false saviors like Kid Icarus and Link and this, and and all these Mario. Because one, he is known all over the world. People in every culture know the name Super Mario, and it means something to them all
I
over the
would
world.
prefer
And
to
then,
think that Doctor Who would be my personal Lord and Savior. He is kind of like
right,
Jesus.
right,
He did come back from the
yeah,
dead multiple times. He goes around helping people,
right,
and he's pretty
yeah.
intelligent and kind and loving, even to his enemies.
Right,
Hmm.
right. And there's even, I mean, and that's the thing, there is as much evidence that there is as much evidence that Super Mario existed as there is that Jesus Christ existed, and that being zero proof.
Well,
But
there probably
the
was a guy called Jesus, and basically the story just got embellished. Like when they said, "Oh, they
oh
added
yeah,
dragons in," it's like it was just some guy who saw like a big lizard, and he's like, "Dude, I saw a big lizard. Dude, my friend saw a big lizard, but he had wings. Dude, this guy
yeah,
had saw a lizard that had big wings and breathed fire and was 20 feet tall." Yeah,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
my wife saw a rock that talked to her. Oh,
yeah,
look,
yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
nice little kid.
This is Samantha. Yeah, Samantha hasn't gotten any attention as of
Oh.
late, and so
Well, I guess that's the only pussy
make
that's going to be seen in this video.
yep, yep. Hey, sweet. She's been complaining about something all day long.
I don't know, maybe
It's hard to know
because
what's
you're not showing enough attention to her.
you know. But she's the one. She doesn't show up as much in the videos as Simba. Simba's more of a ham, but
Eh,
that's the man.
cats are so adorable.
Hello.
The internet is full of cats. I remember that South
Yeah.
Park episode with the memes. I like.
Oh, Long Johnson. Yeah. Oi, but yeah, man, cool. Well, thank you. I have band
I
practice coming
understand.
up.
We talked a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming onto the show. Link in the description where
Thank
to
you.
find him. Do go on Amazon, type in Eros Empire, Eros Empire. Here, it's a
Yeah.
good book, not that expensive. It will help him. Um,
Eros Empire, The Vessel Chronicles is my new web series, and my band is Leaving Babylon, so check those out, and also twitter.com/Jordanowen42.
right. As always, I'm Brent Tenkage, and
Thank you.
you are.
Jordan Owen, or
We
Jordanowen42,
will
as it were.
see you later. Bye.
Have a good one.